I had a chemistry with Ron that was unparalleled.
Yeah.
And that was 50 years ago. So now we do like 45 seconds on the Emmys?
Ron Howard.
Hollywood's golden age gave the world unforgettable movies, legendary stars, and stories that still inspire people today. But behind the bright lights, expensive costumes, and smiling faces, there was another Hollywood that few people ever saw. According to many respected biographies, interviews, and historical reports, some of the biggest stars were feared more than they were admired. And while director and actor Ron Howard has often spoken about Hollywood's history and the lessons it offers, there is no verified public record that he has published a definitive list of the 6 most evil actors from Hollywood's golden age. That makes the real story even more interesting. Where do these dark legends come from, and how much is fact versus myth? Before we begin, here's a question for you. Do you think a great actor's personal behavior should change the way we watch their movies? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. For decades, classic Hollywood was sold as a dream. Movie magazines showed perfect smiles. Fans believed their favorite stars lived perfect lives. The biggest studios carefully protected those images. Bad stories were hidden. Reporters who asked too many questions could lose access. Careers could disappear overnight. But secrets rarely stay buried forever. As the years passed, old studio records, biographies, newspaper investigations, and interviews with actors, directors, and crew members began painting a very different picture. Behind some of the greatest films ever made were stories of fear, bullying, manipulation, and shocking abuse of power. Some stars were kind and generous. Others left behind reputations that still make Hollywood historians uncomfortable today. And this is where our journey begins. Instead of repeating rumors, we'll look at stories supported by respected biographies, interviews, documentaries, and reporting from trusted outlets. Some accounts remain disputed, while others have been confirmed by multiple sources. Together, they reveal how fame, money, and unchecked power sometimes created an environment where terrible behavior could continue for years without consequences. But that was only the beginning. To understand why these stories happened, we first need to travel back to the early days of Hollywood, when the studios controlled nearly every part of an actor's life, and when some of the biggest stars became so powerful that almost nobody dared to challenge them. To understand how some Hollywood stars gained such dark reputations, we first need to understand the world they lived in. In the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s, Hollywood was controlled by a handful of powerful movie studios. Companies like MGM, Warner Brothers, Paramount, 20th Century Fox, and RKO decided almost everything. They chose which movies would be made, who would star in them, what actors could wear, and even who they could date in public. If a studio wanted to make someone a superstar, it could. But if it wanted to destroy a career, it could do that too. Many actors signed long contracts that gave the studios enormous control over their lives. Speaking out against a famous co-star or an important producer could mean losing every future role. Most people stayed silent because they had everything to lose. That silence became the perfect hiding place. Behind the cameras, stories spread quietly from one movie set to another. Crew members whispered about stars with explosive tempers. Young actors warned each other about powerful people to avoid. Directors learned which famous names could not be challenged, no matter how badly they behaved. But almost none of these stories reached the public. Movie magazines focused on romance, luxury, and glamorous premieres. Public relations teams carefully shaped every headline. Fans saw perfect smiles on magazine covers, while completely different stories unfolded once the cameras stopped rolling. Then came the biographies. As years passed, respected authors began interviewing former assistants, stunt performers, makeup artists, directors, and actors who had worked during Hollywood's golden age. Books by historians, along with documentaries produced by networks like Turner Classic Movies and interviews preserved by organizations such as the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, revealed a far more complicated picture. And one name appeared again and again. Many historians describe Errol Flynn as one of the biggest movie stars of his generation. On screen, he was charming, fearless, and impossible to ignore. Audiences loved his adventures, especially in swashbuckling classics like The Adventures of Robin Hood. Off-screen, however, His life became surrounded by controversy. His heavy drinking, reckless lifestyle, and relationships with very young women filled newspaper headlines for years. In 1942, Flynn faced statutory rape charges involving 2 teenage girls. He was acquitted after a highly publicized trial, but the case permanently changed how many people viewed him. Historians still debate different parts of the story, yet most agree that the scandal became one of the most talked about celebrity trials of its time. But Flynn was far from the only powerful star whose reputation became darker with time. Another actor built an image of courage and strength that inspired millions around the world. Yet behind that heroic image, former colleagues and several biographies described a man known for intimidating co-stars, holding grudges, and using his influence to control movie sets. His public face and his private reputation could not have been more different. And that wasn't the only surprise waiting ahead. Before we reveal the next name, and the stories that shocked even longtime Hollywood historians, make sure you subscribe. The next chapter uncovers accounts that many classic movie fans have never heard, and they completely change the way these legendary stars are remembered. The deeper historians looked into old Hollywood, the clearer one truth became. Some stars left behind more than great movies. They also left stories that made people question who they really were once the cameras stopped rolling. One of the names that appears most often is John Wayne. To millions of fans, Wayne was the face of the American hero. His deep voice and confident walk made him one of the biggest stars in movie history. But interviews and biographies, including Scott Eamon's John Wayne, The Life and Legend, describe a far more complicated man. Many co-stars remembered him as demanding and difficult. His 1971 interview with Playboy magazine also drew heavy criticism for comments about race and Native Americans, comments that continued to spark debate decades later. Supporters argued that he reflected the views of his time. Critics believed his words caused real harm. Even today, people disagree about how history should judge him. But Wayne was only the beginning. Another giant of classic Hollywood carried an image of elegance and confidence. Off-screen, however, his personal life became the center of painful stories that refused to disappear. Errol Flynn had everything a movie star could want: wealth, fame, and worldwide admiration. Yet biographies such as Charles Hyam's Errol Flynn, The Untold Story, describe years of reckless behavior fueled by alcohol and constant controversy. Although Flynn was acquitted during his famous 1942 trial, the accusations and his lifestyle damaged his reputation forever. His story became a warning that charm on screen does not always match character in real life. And then there was Klaus Kinski. Unlike some stars whose reputations changed after their deaths, Kinski's explosive temper was well known during his career. Director Werner Herzog, who worked with him on several films, openly described their relationship as one filled with anger and constant conflict. In his documentary My Best Fiend, Herzog recalled moments when Kinski screamed at cast members, threatened people on set, and created an atmosphere of fear. Later, deeply disturbing abuse allegations made by Kinski's daughter, Paula Kinski, brought even darker questions about his private life. Kinski died before those claims became public and could not respond to them, but they remain part of the discussion surrounding his legacy. Yet another shocking story was waiting. Edward G. Robinson became famous playing gangsters, but unlike the others on this list, historians generally describe him as kind and professional. His inclusion in many internet lists about evil actors is not supported by reliable evidence. This reminds us why it is so important to separate documented facts from online rumors. Not every frightening headline tells the truth. That lesson becomes even more important as we move to the final 2 names. One actor's violent temper became legendary among directors and crew members. Another built an image of respectability while hiding behavior that later generations would view very differently. Their stories reveal just how easily power and fame could protect someone for years. And what happened next would leave an even deeper mark on Hollywood's history than anyone expected. For many years, these stories stayed locked away. People working in Hollywood often knew who had a bad temper, who bullied others, or who used their fame to get special treatment. But speaking out was risky. A young actor could lose every future role. A director could be quietly pushed aside. A reporter